Cary Grant was the ultimate icon of Hollywood glamour, yet his daughter only knew of his same-sex romances through the harsh whispers of the tabloids. Similarly, Anthony Perkins, the star of Psycho, kept his battle with AIDS and his true identity a secret from his two sons until his very last breath. Behind the meticulously staged portraits of family perfection were fathers who spent their entire lives performing their greatest role, the straight leading man traded for the price of stardom. These children grew up in a sweet lie, only to be shattered by the truth found in classified FBI files or deathbed confession. Today we go behind the curtain of 10 A-list stars who hid their true selves from their own families until the very end. You'll see that sometimes the reality behind the lens is far more dramatic and haunting than any cinematic script. Cary Grant, the perfect gentleman, and a secret world through his daughter's eyes. If there were a single name to define the ultimate gallantry and masculinity of Hollywood's golden age, it would undoubtedly be Cary Grant. To millions, he was the personification of elegance, the man every woman wanted and every man aspired to be. Yet behind that flawless veneer was a persistent internal struggle over identity, a secret that even his only daughter, Jennifer Grant, would spend a lifetime trying to comprehend. Jennifer was the product of Cary Grant's marriage to actress Diane Cannon. She grew up enveloped in the boundless love of a father who abandoned the limelight at 62 to devote himself entirely to her care. In Jennifer's memories, Cary Grant was an exemplary father, one who constantly instilled in her traditional values. However, the moment she stepped beyond the gates of their Beverly Hills estate, she was met with a harsher reality: relentless rumors that her father was gay or bisexual. At the heart of these whispers was the peculiar relationship between Cary Grant and fellow actor Randolph Scott. Throughout the 1930s, two of Hollywood's hottest heartthrobs lived together under one roof in a home the press of that era mockingly dubbed Bachelor Hall. Behind-the-scenes photographs captured them cooking, exercising, and sharing intimate moments that seemed to transcend conventional friendship. To the public, it was a potential scandal, but to Jennifer, it was a fog clouding the image of the father she idolized. In her memoir, Good Stuff, a reminiscence of my father Cary Grant, Jennifer shared her conflicted experiences. She admitted to frequently hearing questions regarding her father's sexuality, writing, "I can't say for sure what happened before I was born, but to me, he was the best father imaginable." Nevertheless, she didn't deny that her father seemed to enjoy being surrounded by such rumors. According to posthumous records and accounts from close associates, Cary Grant once remarked that being rumored as gay actually made him more mysterious and attractive to women. Yet, the truth appeared far more complex. The Hollywood of the 1950s had zero tolerance for any deviation from the heterosexual leading man archetype. Studios intervened aggressively, staging intimate photo shoots between Grant and various starlets and pressuring him into 5 marriages to stifle public speculation. This repression created a deeply anxious Cary Grant in real life. According to unofficial biographies surfaced later, hiding his true self left him feeling as though he were living behind a lifelong mask. While Jennifer Grant has always chosen to protect her father's image in interviews, film historians believe her stance is a blend of filial piety and silent pain. She loved the sipped character of Cary Grant that he created for her, yet she had to coexist with an open-ended truth about who her father really was. Cary Grant passed away without ever publicly addressing the media's suspicions, leaving his daughter a brilliant legacy, but one riddled with voids that can never be filled. The secret of Cary Grant may have been a sacrifice for his career, but the story of our next icon carries an entirely different tone, the primal rebellion of cinema's greatest bad boy. While Cary Grant spent his life preserving an aristocratic shell, Marlon Brando used his sexual truth as a weapon to defy the world. Marlon Brando, the Godfather and the rebellion of the self. Marlon Brando was a storm that shattered every Hollywood mold. Known globally for his powerhouse performances in The Godfather and A Streetcar Named Desire, Brando was more than just an actor. He was an icon of primal, rugged, and commanding masculinity. Yet to his dozens of children, Brando was not only a complex father, but also a sexual enigma, one whose puzzle pieces they would only begin to assemble much later. Brando's private life was a chaotic labyrinth featuring at least 11 officially recognized children and scores of fleeting affairs. His children, from Christian to Cheyenne, grew up in a household where their father's presence was both gargantuan and distant. In their eyes, Brando was a man who loved women passionately. However, in reality, he never concealed the fact that he also loved men. According to biographical records and later interviews, Brando once candidly shared, "Like many men, I've had homosexual experiences, and I'm not ashamed of it." For his children, this truth was not as simple as a mere public declaration. They had to reconcile with a father who maintained ambiguous relationships with his closest male friends. One of the most controversial accounts involves Brando's connection with actor James Dean, and later a secret years-long affair with comedian Richard Pryor. Pryor's daughter eventually confirmed this to the press, sending shockwaves through a public that had always idolized Brando's godfather persona. Brando's children witnessed their father living in a world where the boundaries between friendship and same-sex love were frequently blurred. Although Brando admitted his sexuality much earlier than many of his peers, he still maintained an invisible barrier with his children. According to Quincy Jones's memoirs and various close sources, Brando was a man torn between his instinct for freedom and the pressure to uphold the image of a family patriarch. His promiscuity, involving both men and women, created an unstable family environment where his children grew up confused about who their father truly was. Toward the end of his life, Marlon Brando chose a reclusive existence on his estate, guarding his final secrets from the prying eyes of the media. The legacy he left his children was not just a collection of prestigious Oscars, but a profound lesson in living authentically in a world rife with prejudice, even if the cost was the fracture of traditional family structures. While Brando used rebellion to assert his identity, our next icon utilized repression and a steely exterior to mask a soul riddled with secret contradictions. Burt Lancaster, The Man of Steel and the Secret, FBI Files. Burt Lancaster was one of the most masculine stars Hollywood ever produced. With the muscular physique of a circus acrobat and a radiant smile, he was the embodiment of strength and resolve in films like From Here to Eternity. To his 5 children, Lancaster was a strict but exemplary father, a true family man. Yet behind closed doors, his life was a series of dark secrets that even his children would only discover through FBI reports after his passing. Lancaster maintained a flawless, straight image throughout his career. He married twice and always appeared to be a devoted father. However, according to documents declassified years later, his personal life was far more convoluted. FBI files revealed that Lancaster frequently attended private parties for gay men and maintained intimate relationships with men for decades. Ironically, it was his very image of rugged masculinity that served as the perfect shield, ensuring that neither the public nor his own children ever suspected the truth. His son, Bill Lancaster, who would later become a screenwriter, grew up in the shadow of this towering patriarch. In the Lancaster household, masculinity was an unquestionable dogma. The discovery of his father's bisexuality through posthumous records and whispers after his death in 1994 created a silent shockwave within the family. According to biographers like Kate Buford, Lancaster lived in constant fear that his career would be decimated if the truth surfaced. This internal repression occasionally erupted in fits of temper and an iron-fisted control over his children. Burt Lancaster's life is a quintessential example of the tragedy facing stars of that era. They could play the hero saving the world, but they couldn't save themselves from their own deception. His children had to learn to accept that their dealy father was in reality a deeply wounded man who sacrificed his true identity to protect his family's future and his own stardom. The photographs of Lancaster laughing with his wife and children in prestigious magazines now stand as a testament to his masterful acting, a role that lasted an entire lifetime. Burt Lancaster is still remembered by his children as a great father, even if their faith was once shaken by these belated truths. But Lancaster's resilience pale in comparison to the bitter irony of our next subject, a man who played the most exemplary father in America, yet carried a heartbreaking secret all the way to his deathbed. The story of Robert Reed will show us the staggering price of playing America's dad while slowly withering away from a truth that could never be spoken. Robert Reed, when America's ideal dad lived in the shadows. The role of Mike Brady in the legendary series The Brady Bunch transformed Robert Reed into the ultimate symbol of the ideal father, wise, patient, and overflowing with love. For decades, millions of American children grew up longing for a father like him. Yet the grim reality was that while the world looked to him as the blueprint for heterosexual domestic bliss, Robert Reed was enduring a brutal internal conflict to protect his career and his own children from the truth. Reed's life was a masterclass in repression. He married Karen Regine in 1954 and had a daughter, Karen Ann Reed. To Karen Ann, her father was a disciplined man, a lover of the arts, and intensely private. She grew up without ever suspecting her father's sexuality, for at that time, the concept of homosexuality was so taboo that it barely existed in the vocabulary of middle-class families. The truth of Reed's orientation was so well guarded that even the child actors who played his children on screen, who viewed him as a real-life father figure, were completely in the dark. According to behind-the-scenes accounts later revealed by close colleagues, Reed lived in constant terror that if the truth were exposed, his career would vanish instantly, and the Kit Brady family image would crumble. He maintained a cold and sometimes difficult exterior on set, which was actually a shield to prevent anyone from getting too close to his private life. Reed's tragedy reached its peak when he was diagnosed with HIV in the early 1990s. Even as he faced death on his hospital bed, he struggled to control the narrative to protect his reputation as America's dad. Karen Ann and the cast of The Brady Bunch only truly learned of his secret when he passed away in 1992. His death certificate revealed that his passing was related to complications from AIDS. This shock resonated not only with his family, but with an entire generation of American viewers. His daughter had to face the reality that the father she adored had lived a lonely life within his own stardom, never daring to hold a loved one's hand in public, and forced to perform the role of the perfect husband and father long after the cameras had stopped rolling. Robert Reed's sacrifice to preserve the purity of his role left behind a legacy of tears. He excelled as an on-screen father, but the cost was an emotional distance from his own biological child. His legacy serves as a painful reminder of how one man could bring happiness to millions of families while never having a single day to live in true freedom himself. Beneath the cloak of a traditional father, Robert Reed chose silence until his final breath. But in another corner of Hollywood, there was a father who chose to use joy and infectious laughter to skillfully conceal a deep same-sex romance that spanned over a decade. Danny Kaye, laughter, masking an eternal romance. Possessing a magical ability to transition between singing, dancing, and comedy, Danny Kaye was the face of optimism and pure joy in 1940s and 50s Hollywood. Through his roles in White Christmas and The Court Jester, he captured the hearts of generations. His only daughter, Dina Kaye, grew up in a home filled with music and fame, always believing that her father and mother composer, Sylvia Fine, were the entertainment industry's perfect couple. Dina Kaye was always proud of her father for being UNICEF's first ambassador, a man who dedicated his life to bringing smiles to children worldwide. However, behind the brilliant career and the marriage that appeared rock solid in the press, Danny Kaye carried a secret whispered only among Hollywood's elite, a deep, passionate romance with the legendary theatrical icon Laurence Olivier. Sources from close associates and film historians have since indicated that Kaye and Olivier shared a relationship spanning over a decade beginning in the 1950s. Danny Kaye's ultimate finesse lay in his ability to ensure that no scandal ever touched his small family. Dina grew up without sensing any fracture or unusual signs from her father. According to posthumous records, Sylvia Fine was not just his wife. She was his manager, songwriter, and greatest ally in guarding this secret. She accepted a marriage defined by unspoken agreements, allowing Danny the freedom to pursue his personal emotions as long as Dina's image of an exemplary father and the family's reputation remained untarnished. The romance between Kaye and Olivier has been described as both passionate and profoundly repressed. After Danny's passing in 1987, details of this relationship slowly surfaced through the memoirs of those within their inner circle. For Dina Kaye, confronting the information that her father led a parallel romantic life was not easy. However, rather than feeling betrayed, she chose to view it as a facet of her father's complex artistic soul. She realized that the laughter her father brought to the world was at times his way of releasing private sorrows he could never openly express. Danny Kaye's story is a testament to both the wisdom and the pain of a golden age star, using humor as a mask to protect loved ones from the narrow prejudices of society. He lived a double life with masterly skill, leaving his daughter with a beautiful memory so profound that the subsequent truth only added depth to the character of a true artistic giant. Moving away from the stage laughter of Danny Kaye, we enter a world where the line between truth and fiction is even more blurred, where a father went as far as erasing his true self to become a legendary director, leaving his daughter with a legacy riddled with unanswered questions. That daughter is Liza Minnelli, and her father Vincente Minnelli lived a life whose truth would only be revealed through the brilliant neon lights of the Broadway stage. Vincente Minnelli, The Art of Concealment, Beneath the Neon Lights. Dubbed the master of Technicolor dreams on the silver screen, the man behind musical masterpieces like Meet Me in St. Louis and An American in Paris, architected a world so dazzling that no one could see the fractures within his own soul. To his illustrious daughter, Liza Minnelli, he was not only a genius director, but the only man who provided her with a sense of peace amidst a life of constant storms. Yet behind the elegance and the quiet demeanor of an artist, Vincente Minnelli harbored a haunting parallel life. Liza Minnelli grew up in a household where art was the very air they breathed, but it was also a place where secrets were woven with intricate precision. She idolized her father, viewing him as her ultimate anchor, while her legendary mother, Judy Garland, spiraled into drug addiction and psychological instability. However, the Hollywood elite of that era were well aware of an open secret: Vincente was gay, or at the very least bisexual. In New York, before achieving fame, he had lived an open life regarding his sexuality. But upon arriving in the film capital under the iron-fisted control of studio moguls, Vincente was forced to don the mantle of an exemplary family man. According to posthumous records and accounts from those close to the family, the marriage between Vincente and Judy Garland was essentially a resonance of two lonely and deeply wounded souls, but it was also about perfect contract to deceive the public. Liza witnessed her father spending hours meticulously selecting every dress color and makeup look for his wife and daughter, with an artistic sensitivity few heterosexual men possessed. Many researchers later suggested that his profound understanding of gender and androgynous beauty helped him create mesmerizing films, but it also forced him to live in absolute repression to avoid tarnishing the image of the father Liza adored. Throughout her journey into adulthood, Liza Minnelli chose to protect her father with a respectful silence. She was aware of the whispers and the men who passed through his life, but to her, Vincente remained the great father who taught her how to shine on stage. The truth of Vincente's sexuality only truly became a focal point of discussion after his death in 1986. Biographers revisited his journals and secret relationships, revealing a man who sacrificed his right to live authentically to protect his reputation and his only daughter. The legacy he left behind was not just Oscar-winning films, but a lesson in tolerance and the unconditional love Liza held for a father who lived his entire life in a world of contrasting shades. The way Vincente Minnelli used the glamour of art to shield himself bears a striking resemblance to the haunting silence of another horror legend. A man who used the standards of a father to hide a quiet agony until the moment he passed away from a nameless disease. Anthony Perkins, the silent agony behind the psycho face. The boyish face, the gentle smile and the haunting eyes of Norman Bates in the cinematic classic Psycho forever etched Anthony Perkins' name into film history. Yet in stark contrast to the twisted killer he played on screen, Anthony was a deeply devoted father in real life, crafting an unbelievably peaceful sanctuary for his wife and two sons, Oz and Elvis Perkins. His portrayal of a conventional family man was so flawless that throughout their youth neither son ever harbored the slightest suspicion of the secret life their father had shielded for decades. Anthony Perkins married photographer Barry Berenson in his early 40s, a move many in Hollywood viewed as a final attempt to secure a normal life after years of deep same-sex involvements with stars like Tab Hunter and Stephen Sondheim. To Oz and Elvis, their father was a true family man who instilled in them the values of honesty and compassion. They grew up in a home filled with love, entirely sheltered from the dark corners of Hollywood, until the truth collided with their reality in the harshest way imaginable. In the late 1980s, Anthony discovered he was HIV positive. Amidst a societal climate still rife with heavy stigma toward the disease, he made a brutal yet protective decision to keep his condition a secret from the world and even from his own children. During his final years, Anthony Perkins performed the most painful role of his career, feigning health and happiness while his body was being ravaged from within. He refused to let his sons endure the shame or the media scrutiny regarding their father's sexuality and illness. The truth only surfaced when a tabloid prepared to leak the story, forcing him to confront his family in his final days. Anthony Perkins' death in 1992 left a gaping hole in the souls of Oz and Elvis. They didn't just lose a father. They had to learn to accept an entirely new man they had never truly known. Oz Perkins later shared that discovering his father's secret same-sex life didn't diminish his love, but rather made him feel a profound sorrow for the repression his father endured to protect them. Anthony took those secrets to the grave, leaving his sons a legacy of silent courage, an extraordinary effort to preserve the purity of his children's childhood in a world saturated with prejudice. While Anthony Perkins used silence to shield his children from a painful reality, our next subject went significantly further. He didn't just hide his true self. He wove a thrilling web of lies about a deceased family so that no one would ever suspect the existence of his real same-sex partner. That man was none other than Raymond Burr, the legendary attorney Perry Mason on screen, but a masterful architect of the greatest real-life lies. Raymond Burr, the architect of great lies. The brilliance of the classic courtroom drama Perry Mason transformed its lead character into a symbol of justice and truth. Yet in stark contrast to the lawyer who always unearthed the facts on screen, the man who played him, Raymond Burr was a master of concealing his true identity behind shocking fictional narratives. For decades, the public and even his closest associates believed a tear-jerking biography he painstakingly constructed to protect the secret of his same-sex partner. Burr told the press and his colleagues that he had been married 3 times, claiming his first wife died in a tragic plane crash, and his only son succumbed to leukemia at just 10 years old. These stories were so harrowing that no one dared to doubt or dig deeper into his grief. The image of a lonely, widowed man devoted entirely to his work made him one of Hollywood's most respected stars. However, the truth revealed after his death left everyone stunned. There was no plane crash, and there was no sun. It was all a sophisticated web of lies designed to hide a steadfast 35-year relationship between him and his partner, Robert Benavides. To his niece's nephews and the younger generation of the Burr family, he was always an exemplary, serious uncle. They grew up with profound sympathy for his past losses, never knowing that in reality he was living a happy life beside the man he loved at a vineyard estate in California. Raymond Burr chose to live in a never-ending play, constantly reciting fake names and fabricated events so that no one could touch his true self. This repression was so immense that he even wove military details into his past to bolster his rugged, masculine persona. The price of this security was a life never truly lived in the sunlight. Raymond Burr protected Robert and his own career by transforming himself into a victim of fate. It was only after his passing in 1993 when Robert Benavides inherited his estate and began sharing their true life story that his descendants and the public understood the magnitude of his sacrifice. Raymond Burr didn't just play Perry Mason, he played Raymond Burr the tragic man for a lifetime to secure peace for those he loved. While Raymond Burr chose to shroud his secrets in fiction to protect his reputation, our next subject proves that sometimes the truth simply needs time to ripen. A father who waited patiently for his daughter to grow and for society to become more tolerant before daring to remove his final mask at over 80 years old. Joel Grey, A Belated Freedom and a Daughter's Embrace. Global audiences remember Joel Grey for his Oscar-winning performance in the musical Cabaret, where he showcased a refined and somewhat androgynous artistic style. However, in his private life, Grey maintained a 24-year marriage to actress Jo Wilder and fathered 2 children, including the star of Dirty Dancing, Jennifer Grey. Throughout Jennifer's upbringing, Joel was always a gentle father and an artist, devoted to his family, never allowing a single crack to appear in his image as a traditional family man. Jennifer Grey grew up beneath the lights of Broadway, under her father's absolute protection. To her, Joel Grey was the ultimate symbol of stability. She never once suspected her father's sexuality, even though whispers were inevitable in the open-minded world of the arts. Jennifer once shared that her family lived within an old-fashioned standard where topics of gender identity or sexual orientation were simply never discussed. Joel Grey chose silence, not because he lacked self-love, but because he wanted to give his children the most normal childhood possible, in an era when being different was still viewed as a flaw. The ultimate turning point arrived in 2015 when Joel Grey was 82 years old. In a groundbreaking interview with People magazine, he officially came out as gay. This act was stunning not only because of his age, but because of how he did it with gentleness, serenity, and profound self-respect. Jennifer Grey, by then a famous and mature woman, became her father's greatest pillar of support. Instead of feeling deceived after decades, she made an emotional statement. "I feel happy for my father because he can finally take a breath of relief and live his remaining years to the fullest." Joel Grey's story is a rare, bright note in a list often filled with Hollywood's tragic secrets. It offers a different perspective on concealing one's sexuality. Sometimes a father isn't just running away from society. He is waiting for a time when his children's love is strong enough to embrace the truth. Joel kept that secret long enough for Jennifer to grow up with compassion, and Jennifer responded to her father's silence with unwavering support. This is a testament to the fact that the truth, however belated, still possesses the power to heal rather than just destroy. The liberation of Joel Grey is a happy ending, but it also serves as a reminder of the countless other stars who were not so fortunate. They collapsed before they could ever speak their truth, leaving their children with haunting questions and a world in shock. And no one represents that shock more clearly than the final monument on our list. That man is Rock Hudson, the icon whose death shattered Hollywood's every illusion, forcing those he loved most to stare into a grim reality he had tried to hide with his very life. Rock Hudson, the fallen monument and the world's awakening. Rock Hudson was more than just a star. He was the pop culture standard bumped of masculinity in Hollywood. With his ideal height, baritone voice, and chiseled features, Hudson was the dream lover of millions of women and the blueprint for every man's aspiration. Yet to those close to him and his family's younger generations, Rock Hudson was a fortress of mystery. He lived his entire life protecting an image meticulously crafted by Universal Studios, a straight persona so perfect it was never allowed even a single crack. Hudson's secret was locked tight behind a staged marriage to Phyllis Gates in 1955. For decades, he managed his private life with absolute precision. Assistants signed non-disclosure agreements. Friends spoke only from a pre-approved script, and all same-sex affairs took place in the shadows of gated mansions. The nieces, nephews, and protégés in Hudson's family grew up with unwavering faith in their powerful, exemplary uncle. They had no idea that behind that healthy exterior was a man sacrificing his entire identity to sustain a multi-million-dollar Hollywood money machine. Everything changed in 1985. Rock Hudson appeared on television looking frail and haggard, unmistakable signs of the AIDS virus. When the truth about his illness and sexuality was announced, it wasn't just a scandal. It was an earthquake that shattered every public illusion. For his family and close circle, it was a moment of profound agony. They didn't just have to face the loss of a loved one. They had to confront the reality that the man they adored had lived in absolute terror for a lifetime. Rock Hudson's death changed history. For the first time, AIDS and the lives of gay people in Hollywood were brought into the light in the most direct way. His relatives, after the initial shock, realized a deeper truth: Hudson had carried that burden alone to preserve their peace. His legacy is not just his classic films, but his courage in becoming the face of a grim reality, forcing the world to change its view on stigma. Rock Hudson died so that future generations would no longer have to live in the lies he once endured. 10 characters, 10 lives, but one shared tragedy. They were prisoners of their own stardom. From the elegant Cary Grant to the tragic Rock Hudson, these fathers chose silence, not out of dishonesty, but out of a boundless love for their families. They were willing to imprison themselves in heterosexual roles for a lifetime to protect the peace of their children in a society rife with prejudice. When the truth surfaced, it may have brought shock, but ultimately it brought understanding. Those children finally realized their fathers were not flawless heroes on screen, but flesh and blood human beings with silent sorrows. We owe these legends a debt of gratitude, for their very tragedies paved the way for the more inclusive world we have today. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the hidden corners of Hollywood. Whose story on this list moved you the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any untold secrets of cinema's greatest legends. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you in the next video.